table, Maokai, things like
Ryze
that.
and
like you were
Maokai would be
saying.
what I'd lock in immediately here. Unless you want to go for something like an Ashe as well. Ashe has been very good at winning bot lanes as either an AD carry or a support. Of course, Varus was doing that around Worlds last year. That has not changed at all, and that will be locked in for the bot lane.
I've actually been really interested at the. We got the little walkout. I'd say it. I love it.
What is this?
It was his
Caught in
first
4K,
walkout.
drop
He
it,
had like
littering on the stage.
Yeah.
Caught in 4K.
So the Varus is really interesting. Obviously, we've seen the really high priority in the lethality builds, but now paired with the Maokai as well, they've got a very strong first two picks for Team WE on red side.
That is huge objective control already, because Varus is bot lane play. It's also, I would imagine with Maokai, you want to go towards a bit more of the poke build, because Maokai either slows someone with a sapling or hits them with the ult, and then the Varus arrow from, a full screen away hits you out of the blue. You don't need to get it up close and personal to make use of an on-hit or a crit build. That's what it's looking towards going towards for me. However, on the other side, you have very aggressive bot lane, aggressive early game jungler. So before those objectives start setting up already, even with the first few picks locked in, looking at TT to try and break up WE before they get to an objective, and of course WE to make use of the areas which they control on the map.
Man, if they just get the Ksante, I feel like they've gotten every Christmas present you could ever ask for the first phase. Although I will say TT has
Well, I
their
mean,
own
doesn't
strong
Maokai
response,
have the Christmas present skin as well? Like the Christmas
he
tree
does. I use that one all the time. It's literally
Wait,
the only
are you a
reason.
Maokai player?
No, I'm not. If our
Hey,
ERF
you
is
use
up,
it all the
yes,
time.
100%.
Oh, I don't actually play it.
Well, our ERF has been up for like a month now, all right? That's a lot of games, Nymaera. There's a lot of games. I don't know if you're an RF fan, but I am. So we're into second phase now, and we do have those power picks for WE, but still a lot left on the table. Ryze taken off by Team WE, so another big power pick in mid lane.
And the Ashe as well. Also. Because I look at the Ryze and the Ashe, and we talked about this right from the start. The Ryze and the Ashe are things which I consider first pick on blue side. These have fallen all the way through the draft, signaling a very different set of priorities from these teams. Now, this is game one of the best of three. It allows you to have kind of like a free play, really, in some ways, and say, even if we do have a bit of a different take in the first game, and it doesn't work out, we can come back in the next couple of games. But for me, passing up the Ryze and the Ashe, I wouldn't do that myself if I was on this patch. So we're going to have to see exactly how it comes through to these second rounds, and how now you have to put those bans towards those power picks, how that affects what's open coming through to your last picks.
And we're getting a lot of heavy focus towards mid lane from WE. On the other side, it's towards this bot lane. So a little bit of differing mindsets when it's coming to the second phase of bans, as the Nautilus is the final ban, trying to get away from some of that engage, some of that point and click, some of that setup that TT are really looking for.
I wonder if you're looking towards something a little bit longer range as well from WE here. Syndra is up, Azir is up. I think both of those are very powerful champions to put in. You can also go towards something like the Talia as well, which of course Ucal is very, very famous for in his own right. It's going to be the Karma. Technically a flex between the mid lane and the support for WE as it turns out right now. I think it's probably going towards that bot lane for lane control, level 1 poke, and being able to at least combat the Lucian Nami on even ground early on, even if the Lucian Nami are probably still going to have a bit more control in the early game.
So we're still looking at solo lanes for TT. Azir blocked in for Ucal, so tried and true there. And I do wonder here what we're going to get in the top lane. Obviously, you're into the Ksante. I think we've seen some of the nice answers. People are willing to take the Fioras, things like that. But it is the Renekton hover, and the Renekton locked in here, as Biubiu will get that one, or will be going against that one on the Ksante.
Yeah, and now you have actually from TT 3 very strong lanes which can push in early and control the map. Now, if WE do lock in something like that Akali, you're expecting to be pushed in mid, maybe pushed in bot. That 2v2 can be a bit versatile in the way that it plays out. And then the Ksante kind of absorbing the pressure of the Renekton early on as well. I'm a little bit worried here for TT, because Maokai can't bail out every lane at once, nor does he necessarily want to be fighting a Vi at level 3, level 4, and even at the level 6 mark. You really want to be fighting around objectives, not necessarily around those lanes. I think TT have walked away with a very good ability to play aggressively through lanes very early on, and then transition into a one-item spike where maybe they can shut out the game early on away from Team WE.
So one-item spike for TT, big kicker there, but I do think obviously a lot of the setup, a lot of the day number 2 of week 3. It is TT versus WE. Game underway now.
Setting up for that level 1. No real ability to get CC like a Brawler or Nautilus, but able to get some vision, track things around. So, Shanks, gets a ward onto the enemy red buff, knows which side of the map jungle will be starting on early, but Team WWE know that they know. They had someone in the brush see that ward go down. So the next level, both teams understanding what information the other team has.
Just want to give a pass to the crowd as well. The gyos were not as loud as I wanted them to be, but you know what? We're getting back into it after.
Do you have high standards for the gyos?
I just want to hear them. I actually didn't hear any anything. Usually I get to hear them in my ear. They distract me. But as you were kind of saying, that early pathing, right, I think is important. But for WE as a whole, we've already put so much focus on early game prowess, early game trying to find something, make something happen for TT. In terms of how Heng should play this one, do you feel like it should be very reactive to where Beichuan is trying to find those early advantages?
I think any time that Heng can find any eyes on Beichuan, that is when it is really important. I wouldn't... So in terms of counter-ganking, stuff like that, yes, I think you're looking to respond to plays rather than making your own in terms of plays. What I think you can do actively, though, as the Maokai, is just try and get an E into the enemy jungle. Get a ward into the enemy jungle if you can with your mid lane. Of course, you've got the sweeper at this point. You can't do it yourself, but any eyes you can get on the Vi to make sure you have good information to be in the right place at the right time, that's what's most important for me from this early jungle matchup. Because, as we said, when you don't have the pushing lanes and you can see that mid lane's being pushed in, top lane's being pushed in, bot lane's a bit more contested, it means that this Vi does have more options to play with than you do.
And I think that'll be really, really crucial to kind of keep a mind on as well. I love the fact that Hope and Lwandy are playing really aggressive earlier on in this lane. I think that's obviously a must. We do see in jungle pathing, right, opposite side pathing, we have, yep, spotted out of the ward. There was the ward on the opposite side as well, spotting out Heng starting on his red. So it will be seen that at least the pathing is going this way. Heng down towards the bottom side and Beichuan towards top.
Yeah, so both junglers playing towards their pushing lanes right now. Hope and Lwandy are, even though we saw one of those mantra Qs flying wide, they've still managed to get the push, still managed to get that wave under turret. Heng hanging around on that side of the map and able to get that bot scuttle spawn. You have to imagine. I don't think that Beichuan is going to go and contest for that one. So as it stands, I don't think there's a dive opportunity on top side. It is literally just these junglers playing towards their pushing lanes and seeing what openings present themselves on second resets, really.
Ooh, Shanks taking a lot of heavy trades in the mid lane. Health bars are very different, I feel like, here, Nymaera. And bot side will get the engagement. The 2v2 action kicking off pretty strong. And speaking of that 2v2 action, I'm interested at this Karma Varus bot lane. I feel like the poke is so heavy, but it's also a duo that is maybe rising in priority.
Yeah, it's been an answer to the likes of stuff like your Heimerdinger and Ashe kind of priority lanes, the Lucian Nami as well, having very early burst damage. You have wave control with this duo, you have the ability to poke out, you have very good range, and you have the ability to damage the wave very early as well. So that's why you've been seeing a bit more of this coming through. I think even when we saw it in, even in the World Championship, right? Where we saw, it was Game 5, we saw the T1 try and play the Varus Karma. Of course, that was countered by the Bard barrel at that point. But it's something that we've seen a bit more. And that's a tower shot. That's the one where you lose to this matchup, by the way. That's just the Ksante thing. You can't get pushed back into turret, and yet it still happens.
It's just magic. Like, honestly, every time. Like, it's just, you circle around the tower, eventually you'll find yourself taking an extra tower shot here or there. But Lwandy actually making a roam towards mid lane here onto Ucal. I think this is really good, at least early machinations for WE. Not going to come away with anything, but seeing this movement come out from the pushing lane, I think shows some of that cohesion we want to see from WE.
Yeah, and that is very important because we talked about how actually, TT, they probably do have better early options. Maybe when you hit that level 6, you can see that Vi walking into a lane. But as it stands right now, WE have managed to get themselves a lot of freedom on the map. So the next couple of minutes, because Lwandy has managed to get out of the lane, are going to be much easier for them to play around. You have vision in the bot side. Heng, Lwandy getting into the enemy jungle. I think WE already are outvaluing or outperforming what you should necessarily be seeing from a draft of this kind so far. So in the next couple of minutes, really looking for TT to try and either make a playoff of the pushing top side they have around the Herald, or to make a big power play of their own with your early burst damage they have with the 3 people on your screen, that jungler and this bot duo.
Yeah, looks like they're putting some priority around this river, at least earlier on. I love that this spin a little bit, but Heng was actually thinking about going for an aggressive path on the bot side. Luckily, Beichuan was pathing right in his way, so good stuff, at least not finding the early kills, maybe the early advantages, but finding ways to kind of upend some of Heng's now early wants. Shanks still in some trouble in mid lane, feels like, and honestly, very, very calm and steady early game here for this first game back for us, Nymaera, and it's kind of right where I would want to be, I guess, because I'm expecting fireworks later on.
I think there has to with this amount of ability to just brawl and engage. Lucian, Nami, one-armed Spike, really looking at that to be a big trigger pull for TT as well. But yeah, as you're saying, Azir still controlling that mid lane matchup. You kind of expected early on. It really is about making a mistake from the Azir I mean, we saw Lwandy even roaming into that mid lane, right? Sometimes that can lead to a kill and then the matchup flipping apart after that point. But as it stands right now, it has been that calm early game. And that favors WE as far as I'm concerned. If this carries on, this is going to be quite problematic for, as we said, the team which has pushing topside and the ability to make a play through that Vi. They're not really being able to pull the trigger right now. That's what I'm looking for again, but they haven't found angles so far.
Ooh, look at this, though. We're getting collapse around Dragon. The Control Warden, the Dragon Pit will be taken out. Beichuan is around the corner here. Ucal has first move, but it looks like Shanks is coming right away. Beichuan looks like he wants to fight this. I'm figuring like 2,000 health down. Maybe
I
this
don't know
is
about
it.
this, guys.
But hey, we flipping maybe as Shanks on the side. He's the one that gets engaged on first. Be a little bit careful. Maokai Heng is going to secure the dragon for WE. And all fainted for TT. They just wanted to show Team WE that they were around.
What are we doing here, lads? We're sat here and we're spectating the dragon going down. This is just a sightseeing tour, watching that dragon go over to WE. Well, you can't find your own angle into it. TT had the pushing mid. They had the ability to maybe burst someone out, but they allowed the Maokai to get saplings in the river. They allowed them to get onto the objective first, which is where they are strongest. And TT, they couldn't find a way into it. Once again, not really able to play through the early burst damage which they have, and that is becoming more and more concerning. At least with the Herald coming up, maybe that's the next place that they can try and utilize things, but they don't have their jungler on that side of the map. They've got resets coming in from Hope and Lwandy, so they can go towards that objective too. Already, WE are continuing on in the pace of gameplay, which really suits them.
Yeah, and to be honest, at this point, we're only 8 minutes in, but there's a pretty decent CS discrepancy developing bot lane. So I would expect that TT may want to put some more resources to their lane-winning mid lane or top lane as well. And I wonder if that duality of seeing Heng focus so much on bottom side, but now the objective control coming up from Team WE is maybe a response to that.
And I think this is also a continuation of Lwandy getting out on the map after that bot lane was won. You called out the CS advantage. Well, Lwandy has now come mid several times, has been able to support his jungler take their second objective of the game. And TT, don't really know how many more times we can say this. You've got to make a play at some point. I actually wonder at this point, now you've given over that dragon, that first herald, I wonder if waiting for Imperial Mandate and the first item spike from the Lucian is too late, actually. I feel like you do need to be making something with this Vi ultimate, maybe catching out Lwandy as a start of that, but he's already been safely backed up by his teammates, and once again, WE, they slam the door shut and say, no, actually, there's no option here.
Yeah, honestly, kind of incredible that they're able to push so much advantage with seemingly nothing, but it's just about that movement around the map, having those bodies there in time, and now Shanks feeling a little bit more comfortable, confident, catching up in that CS discrepancy in mid lane a little bit as well, is going Team WE's way. But that's where I want to tackle next. Beichuan trying to find next moves for TT. You have Heng with a Rift Herald. You have to think about that when you're moving around the map for Beichuan. You're working on first item completion. So where do you want to ensure this kind of next step comes from?
I think you're in a bit of a difficult spot here from TT because if you make a big play and the Herald is elsewhere, so say you make a play onto someone like the Akali with the Vial, try and shut down that mobility, try and get some gold onto Ucal. If that Herald goes somewhere else on the map, you're in big trouble. Herald tends to be around your AD carry nowadays. It's a really good source of gold to kind of put in towards them. So you can see that Beichuan trying to maybe guess where they're going to be and avoid this huge bot side vision from WE, but there's flashes available, there's summoners available from WE. I don't think that was likely to lead to a play anyway, and really, Beichuan's once again struggling to find their first mark in this game.
Well, and I was interested because I was expecting a little bit more focus towards the solo lanes, but just kind of revisiting bot lane, making sure that everything's okay if Heng was re-rotating back down towards bottom lane, but doesn't come to fruition there. And now we see Heng going down there, so actually good timing for WE. And we'll see actually Beichuan looking like he's going to go back towards the top side of the map to get some farming going. See if Heng wants to go ahead and use this Rift Herald down here. try and get some pushing going. I mean, walking into
he's
the
doing
lane
some
makes me think they
sightseeing
do, but Lwandy take about half his health in shots from that culling.
It is shots from the killing, but that's the ult down from the Lucian, which means that you're not as able to kill someone like that Maokai if they chose to dive you under this turret, which means that they have to back off.
Shanks
because
is
while
on his way.
Beichuan probably guessed out the right area of the map that was going to be played around next, but he's not there in time. He's left too early, and the dive is coming in.
The tidal wave is actually really big in terms of countering that nature's grasp. Beichuan's on his way here now. Ooh, Shanks wanting to go in. Looks that Shuriken flip won't find it. So still no blood. 11.5 minutes in. We had an attempted dive from Team WE that was counter ganked there, and with another dragon coming up, I would expect some more focus on this stacking for Team WE as I feel the early game has gone their way.
That it has, and reminder that WE, if you came into this split expecting the same as summer last year, we've had a pleasant surprise on that front, because WE didn't get a single series victory in summer 2022. They ended up picking up a win against FTX in their very, very first series of this year, 2-1. Pretty hard fought, but in this one, feels like they are once again riding a bit of that momentum and showing up with more results than they had in that last year.
Yeah, I think, well, after this, maybe a little bit of trouble for Heng as he tries to get out of there. Huanfeng goes over the wall. Shanks trying to chase him. They get the first blood for TT, and it's onto the tree. Shanks, oh, he gets double. He gets 3. No, it's the third going to Hope, who comes in and slams the door on TT. You thought you had him in the first half, but you didn't. That's a double kill for the ADC of WE and 4 total to bring us to 5.
And out of nowhere, TT finally try and make a play. They pull off that Vi ultimate and they try to catch someone in WE's jungle after that Nature's Grasp from Maokai was unavailable after the bot lane dive, but the reason it caught me off guard is because they hadn't done it this entire game so far. Yeah, I understand that the dragon's coming up. You're trying to prevent WE from once again getting control over this area, but what an overdive this is. You're flashing forward, you're using your ultimates, and while you catch out the Maokai, you're leaving yourself open for this Akali to run amok amongst the carries and the champions which you sent forwards with their mobility. And it just falls apart after that point.
The 5-point strike over the wall feels so bad. And then the chase down, love that Hope is kind of that decisiveness to flash over the wall saying, you know, we're going to pick up kills here. Now you've got 2-0 on Shanks, 2-0 on Hope. You're doing fine and dandy in the top lane. WE are cruising right now, Nymaera.
And Ucal, difficult spot, doesn't have the ult, doesn't have the flash, probably going to go down here as well. Shanks, a little bit more golden pocket.
Give me your best Star Wars quote for Ucal dying. Go.
No! That's about as best as I could think.
That's perfect. Hey, you were telling me I gotta be on my feet. Look at you.
Like, I both know we're enjoyers of the series, but like, I need like at least a couple of seconds heads up.
Nah, that's not how we do here. That's not how we do here. But that's just a little bit of a stagnation here. WE feeling very confident on the map. They already had a lead. Now they have 3.5K. First items coming online. That spike not going to be as beneficial to TT because they weren't able to get that early advantage we were setting out for them earlier.
Yeah, and this is the kind of gold lead which should really have been flipped over, because you have a Renekton who's pushing in that top side early. You have that Vi and that Azir combo, which is meant to be prio in mid lane, allowing your jungler to make plays. But TT, they missed that first punch, and now they are on the back end of these plays.
Lwandy is just ruthless. He's chasing him down to the chains of corruption. Will corrupt the soul of Beichuan. Now onto the Rift Herald, number 2 for WE. Yes, they might be 1-1 in Dragons, but 2 Rift Herald will help them continue to cruise right along as we press over 15 minutes. It just feels like we've got a race to see who gets the most kills between Hope and Shanks. Both sitting at 3-0 now, as Hope in the mid lane trying to take down the outer tower here finally. And even though with all these kills we've been catching up to the timer, we still haven't had the big break of the towers just yet. And
no, while the first tower hasn't
now
gone
we
down,
have.
I was looking at that mid lane, I completely forgot about the bot lane turret HP, and I was like, huh, okay. Because what I was going to say is that, while it's not like W have taken down this mid turret yet, they have that second Herald, they get the local objective gold as well for the taking, that's more gold in pocket, but just the ability to just hold that Herald, hold it over TT and say, the next time you make a big play, this Herald can once again be played somewhere else on the map if you mess up that play, is really important for WE. Once again, the game is going completely to the pace that they would like. They're not overplaying their hands. They're allowing TT to make their own mistakes, and then they can capitalize on them. We picked up on that from Draft, but it feels like Beichuan has gotten a little too desperate in the last few minutes and has been picked off pretty much every time he's gone in at this point. And WE with that Herald now probably can just set up in mid lane, sit there, use that Herald and say, all right, TT, what are you going to do to respond? Because it feels like every aggressive play you make right now is being countered.
And that's the most difficult thing, and that's where the jungle, yes, we had put so much spotlight on mid lane, but we also kind of tied in how does this work for the jungle? Where do we see kind of that strategy unfold for TT and WE, Beichuan and Heng? And I think we've seen the Maokai really having a big impact at this point, making a lot of steady advances, making a lot of secure plays, I feel like, for WE. And for Heng as well. I think a big highlight should go to Heng, the jungler of WE, a guy from Young Miracles, right? He was come up in one of the most storied LDL teams in Young Miracles, having had the likes of Ming, Ning, Tien, and Knight all coming from there. And this guy coming over to WE, really trying to carve out his own legacy as a jungler. And I think going against Beichuan, maybe not the legacy builder, but I think structure like this is huge. And Huanfeng getting caught out there also huge.
It's actually not going to lead to a kill. It's just a chunk. That chunk is enough for that tower to go down. So now, WE, they have taken bot lane out of turret, taken mid lane out of turret. They can start pushing in for vision in the jungle. You can already see some saplings being placed around there, and some vision being put over the likes of that raptor pit as well. TT starting to lose territory that they can play around, and now you have people like Hoya stuck alone on this side lane. Laning up against someone like the Akali, who is a very proficient side laner, and not really having the safety to try and look for outplays in that lane too. It really has felt now that WE are getting to the point where everything that they take on the map is going to be working out in their favor. TT think where they can look towards is maybe getting a side lane outplayer themselves if they can get Beichuan into the right position. But to do that, they have to make sure that they're not walking over vision to get there, because every time Vi is spotted on that vision, it just allows WE to get to the play in time and punish them once again.
That punishment has been so brutal. I do also want to take the time to go ahead and welcome our two new members to the game, Biubiu and Hoya. They now are a part of the game.
Oh, they're champions
not only
now?
in top
Cool.
side. Yeah, they're champions now.
Haven't seen them yet.
But now I want to get their perspective, all right? We don't have live interviews, but, you know, now that we're like 18 minutes of game, they're finally joining us. What do you feel like for Hoya at this point? You've got a big advantage going to Team WE.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of problem, right? Like, Hoya's kind of like gone off to the Dagobah system, hides there for a couple of years, comes back out and goes, hey guys, how's it going?
Guys, what's going on?
Oh no! Oh, this is horrible. What have we done?
He's grown scales. He's a crocodilian now. You know, those kinds of things.
Yeah, but he's done his job. Like, he sat there in top lane. He ended up, you know, getting that push and controlling that top side early. It just wasn't latched onto by the rest of TT, and now he has to sit looking at Biubiu's team eclipsing his own so far and not having great individual options. As soon as that early lane pressure loses its value.
Yeah, we saw Hope solo killing a dragon over there. Ucal getting caught in the side lane here, flashing under his tower. Will make it out alive, as Heng was actually on his way here. Baron's spawning about 35 seconds. A lot of presence around the top side of the map for WE. Sure, it's just the vision game. Their vision actually has been so oppressive this game.
Yeah, and that's what we just highlighted before this, right? Where it's WE, they have a proficient side laner in that Akali. TT are probably looking for a play with a numbers advantage on a side lane, but you can't do that if the vision is going against you. WE, they've done their homework, they've done their due diligence, and they have put up the vision to allow them to push into turrets like this, but not overplay. And as soon as Beichuan turns up, so is Heng there. Heng's there as well. He pulls the ultimate, looking for a counterplay.
4 members of TT around the corner here. Tidal Wave will come back out. Now there's TPs across the board, and now they've also caught Heng. They might be making a little bit of a log cabin here. Hoya flashed it over the wall. Oh, perfect execution. Gets Shanks right into range to pick up the kill. And again, TT, they try to push forward. They try to advance. They come up with nothing.
TT choose the area of the map that they want to play on, and they look towards playing around that vision, and they do get the 1 kill. It's just not what they need right now to actually pull ahead in the game and allow them some advantages which they can play around continually through this. WE actually after this, even though it's a 1-for-1, they're still pushing into that turret. They're still keeping vision, and Hoya is not at this play, but Biubiu
He's
just gonna die
taking
here?
up so much. Oh my goodness. And Lwandy was, of course, right there behind him. So, yeah, nicely baited there. And Hope going to get the tower on the other side.
I was a little bit worried for a second because you didn't have that Renekton in that kind of fight. I was like, okay, maybe taking uneven numbered fights, but of course, it wasn't like WE had all of their forces to bear as well in that one. But it's going to take away the ghost from Biubiu, which is fair enough. Going back to the replay, which one are we going towards? So this is going to be the trigger pull from WE. So Nature's Grasp coming out, but once again, we see actually a pretty impactful tidal wave coming out. We saw one of them under bot lane turret to save TT's bot lane. It's going to lead to this turnaround kill here, but Hoya misses the memo a little bit. Play doesn't quite go towards the area of the jungle which he wanted to. He's caught out in the middle of nowhere, and Shanks ends up 4-0-1 after that play. Even more gold over to that terrifying Akali.
It's been about where the resources are going, right? It's been so surgical, it feels like, from WE at this point. Now we have the second item completions across pretty much the board for WE. Just got the Shadow Flame completed for Shanks. And it feels like there's just a coming storm around the Baron here very soon, or even looking at those stackings of dragons. But it's a slow and steady march for WE forward. And I still struggle to see Beichuan finding those big catchouts unless there's big mistakes, right? And we find some of those with those overextensions. But right now it just feels like the calm structure play is coming out from Team WE, which I think is a very nice breath of fresh air, right? I think we saw some chaos from them before the break. And now we're getting a little bit of that standard play with Lwandy just constantly roaming around the map on this Karma.
Yeah, this Karma has been very, very impactful. As soon as that bot lane was under control, turns up towards mid, turns up towards objectives, is linking up with Heng, going into the enemy jungle, turning up to the big plays. And while this isn't a roaming Nautilus, Leona, Alistair, something like that, the Karma has had pretty huge value. And that has allowed Heng to really pop off, really look for these big plays. And while they are both of the deaths on their team right now, I don't think he cares too much about that. He's throwing his face into the fray. He's getting enough done. Has set up these plays for success for his team.
Yeah, as long as your mid laner and ADC are unkilled, you'll be perfectly happy with that one. But yeah, it's honestly been a good amount of team play coming out from WE and some of that cohesion, especially between Lwandy and the rest of the team. But also the confidence to kind of leave Hope in that bottom lane, right? Lwandy and Hope having played together on the EDG youth team in 2019. Been a while since they've been together, but you know, some of that, what do they say? I guess it's you never forget how to learn or to ride a bike or something like that. Is that the saying?
That's fair. That is the saying. That is the saying. I was like, I'm trying to remember if I've ever forgotten how to ride a bicycle, and I think I could probably still do it, so at least it holds true in my case.
There you go. There you go.
But we're actually, at this point, moving away from side lanes back towards this mid lane, because we do have dragons spawning. Baron is alive. We're getting towards this point where, because both objectives are up, both of these teams want to get control over this mid lane. And TT have had a pretty good shot at it for now, but that Maokai is waiting in the sides. As soon as that Maokai shows, TT understand, right, that Maokai ult, very, very dangerous. We need to be very careful about how we retreat from this mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, Shanks is just trying to set up a blockade here on the side. It looks like WE. We pushed away from this mid lane. We're just getting the mid lane scuffle as Hope solos yet another dragon. Now, this will be third dragon for Team WE. Not much that TT can do since they're on the other side of the map. And honestly, Soul Point for them opens up a lot of avenues for Team WE.
Because you have, it is actually going to be that on-hit crit Varus, going towards that Rage Blade. So it is on-hit, not crit actually, even though you build it towards it. But either way, it allows Hope to solo down that dragon, and allows the rest of his team to control this mid lane. And again, you can see that TT are now in this awful spot where they don't feel as though they can pull the trigger, but they are also very afraid of the trigger being pulled on them. Yeah. So WE kind of holding that to them, saying, all right, we are just going to very cleanly take the objectives which we get for free. We're not going to overplay ourselves either. And TT are kind of left again wondering what they can do. They moved away from those side lanes where they potentially could have got uneven numbered fights. They go towards that mid lane, but they can't find anything there either. They're trying different angles of approach, but they're not finding much yet.
So Ucal on the side lane there will not get caught. Nice little shifting sands out. A lot of bodies for Team WE around the Baron pit here. And it's obvious that I don't think it's a start angle for them. They're just making sure things are nice and tidy around there. Love to see a little bit of that damage profile come out from Huanfeng. Now he's got the rapid fire cannon, the Gale Force. The combo is still strong, but I think they're still left wanting, at least for now, for TT. And that's where a lot of the strength from mid lane now and looking at what's been given to Hope and Shanks as a whole for Team WE is such a big standout. Like, we came into this one saying, Shanks, you need to step up. You need to be able to show yourself in a time of change in the mid lane.
Like
this
lovingly
is the time
step
to show up,
but step up, right? Where it's like, look, we know you can be really good. We saw a couple of those games against FPX where Shanks really ended up popping off. There was that one Azir game which really stands out to mind. But this game has been a good response to that.
I think it's, yeah, exactly. I think obviously still building through the series is going to be a lot, but this first showing is looking really, really good for the Shanks Akali. Heng not taking any damage there, just throwing out the aliens. And honestly, I'm interested that WE hasn't tried to force a Baron at this
Throwing
time.
out the aliens in mid lane. No one can hear you scream as the burn damage
that
takes
what
over
it
and
is?
over. He has. That's what I'm going to refer to it from now on. But
Hey,
that
they're
does
doing
mean
it!
With they're finally doing it. Finally going to get that response. But
Oh
they
my
are
goodness.
probably looking for that turn. They've put the sapling minefields down. TT still looking for their approach.
Shanks on the side here. You got Beichuan a little bit on the edge. Hoya is blocking, at least for Huanfeng and Xinliu. And be careful, Nature's Grass comes out. Shanks is going in on the side. Has the trap pop there. So it looks like W will not be able to get it. Perfect execution. Number 2 gets utilized out, and TT dissuade the aggression from WE. A lot of standstills going on here. Now Huanfeng trying to go forward. Gets the chance of corruption from Hope. About half his health and damage. The bubble now lands on Biubiu, but he's so damn tanky. And TT now looking to siege up the mid lane, maybe claim some of this bounty gold.
Yeah, well, they've taken down the Maokai ult. That's going to be a flash in.
Now Hoya, a little bit careful of all of TT dashing out of that fight.
No,
and,
wait. That's not a
rightfully
flash
so.
in. That's just one of Ksante's many dashes. Like, hang on, how did he get to melee range? But TT, very orderly retreat from that mid lane. They end up getting out of the range of the Maokai ult. It allows them to survive the Maokai ult, take away the Akali too. And I mean, you don't have your ults there, WE. You probably need to play this a little more calmly. That just feels like a bit of a desperation flash from Heng.
Both teams, honestly, they're on the knife's edge here. Like, both teams, there's so much tension, it feels like, this one. Everybody's kind of second-guessing themselves, not going all the way in. We're getting the want to flash over the wall and getting engaged, not enough range, realizing to back off. But I think that's where some of the reservation for Team WE has been, again, refreshing, because they have a composition where they are fine in this kind of situation. They don't need to force. They are winning the game. They don't need to force a fight that they don't need to to do.
And that's exactly where I'm like, well, why are you flashing over the wall there? Why are you making, trying to make that play at that point? You've just used your big ultimates. There's no point to put things in risk. Obviously, TT feel like they can fight as soon as the Akali and the Maokai ult are down after that mid lane retreat. I think they could have just played it a little bit more safe at that point. But now, of course, they have their ultimates back up again. Maybe they can look for another big play. Maokai ult comes out.
Gonna catch Hoya on the back. Oh, actually gets the double. Change of corruption on top of it. Tidal wave's gonna be big on the side. Huanfeng's down, though, in the middle of the fight. Shanks is now out. Now he got the flank from Biubiu. He's found 3 members. Can he get the knockback? The all-out goes through. Big blast cone, and it leads xinliu to his death. We have WE pushing in mid lane. Hoya can't really do anything but try and clear the wave. And again, another stop fight by WE as they take 3 and don't lose a single member.
And that was a very different sort of play from TT, where actually they had been able to have enough vision around this mid lane, enough ability to walk away from these big ultimates. They don't find the same range this time to get away from Heng's ultimate on the Maokai. And Heng has once again been the tip of the spear for WE, linking up with Shanks in a way which we were really looking for them to do in this first game, and getting results from it. Now, Hoya and Ucal not able to defend this objective. They just have to watch not just the Baron go down, but the Dragon as well. Kentek's Soul going over to Team WE. It's not the most powerful Soul in the game, but it's still extra stats, still extra ability to get ahead of the curve of this game. And where this really starts is Huanfeng trying to use that power spike, which we saw come out of this Lucian, and then he eats that Maokai ult, not actually walking behind the body block of Hoya, and the whole fight just disappears after he's exploded.
That's really rough. It's like literally right at the edge. And the fact that Biubiu is just setting up a flank this whole time. Obviously, big stuff from Biubiu just being the tank as a whole, but really, really nice little flank there. Beichuan trying to get out alive here. Does have xinliu right around the corner, and the upgraded blast comes because Kentek's Soul. But now, honestly, want to see WE find a way to close this out. I think the next telling thing is how cleanly WE can close this out with circling a 10,000 gold lead, a Chem Dragon Soul, and the Baron on the table.
That's a very good point, because you have 2 minutes this Baron left, you have waves crashing in mid and top, but can you actually take down these turrets and break base? Because you still have to deal with an Azir's wave clear, and if you don't finish things off in this Baron, you're allowing an extra couple of minutes for T2 to maybe reach another item spike.
Maybe get another item in there.
I'm not saying it's easy, but it's probably a degree of freedom you don't want to be giving them, particularly when something like the Elder Dragon could be coming up as well. And a flip over Elder Dragon, regardless of how far ahead you are in the game, can always be a threat. So, WE, let's see what they can do. Pulling out Maokai ult, trying to cut things down in short order.
Goodness. Hoya getting CC chained will actually bear the brunt of the damage. Beichuan going in on the hope. He's a little bit overextended. You got the tidal wave following him up, though. They might get this one back. Oh, my God. Shanks just kills them all. A double kill for the mid laner of WE. And they have now wiped another 3 kills onto the board and onto the faces of TT. To be able to finish this game out easy enough. Hoya and Ucal will not be able to stand the test of WE's might as Hoya goes back in to die one more time. Hope gets another kill. The Nexus falls. WE go 1-up in the series.
We asked the question, could they close out cleanly? Could they stop this game elongating to an Elder, to a Baron? And the answer is, yes, they can close it out.
We, we got what we asked for, Nymaera, and I think that there's something to hold there, some positive. A really, really good start performance from WE in this first game of the series. I think they got a lot of stuff in the draft that they felt very comfortable, very strong with, and they executed. And I think the bar of execution, I said in the draft, was higher for TT, unable to reach that bar in Nymaera.
And that is a little concerning, because they still had like the pushing mid lane, the pushing top lane. We were already talking about how important it was to track that the jungle mid synergy. We didn't really see that lead to anything for TT, even though that Akali was pushed in early, was losing a lot of HP. You expect that from the matchup, but the Vi couldn't capitalize on top of it. And credit to Team WE, they saw that lack of pressure, and it gave them that degree of freedom to say, well, we can just play around the objective setup. We're allowed into the river. We're allowed to have Lwandy roam across the map, and things never really stabilized from that point from TT, because they could just never force WE away from the areas of the map that they were playing around.
That was the most difficult part about watching that game. Was it just felt like there was not an avenue forward. It was blocked by like the dumpsters and all that kind of stuff. There was stuff in the road. All right, it just was not possible for them to get through. And I think TT will obviously have a lot to pull back from draft and going into game 2. But as a whole, I would have liked to see Beichuan be a little bit more proactive on the Vi. I think it was difficult, but I think to some extent that first pathing really meant a lot, and not coming away with anything from that one and kind of sticking to the farm pathing didn't necessarily go their way, right?
No, and it felt like the first plays Beichuan did try and be proactive just about 3, 4, 5 minutes too late. It felt like the window had already closed to the point where actually you're diving into the enemy jungle against the Akali, who's got ultimate and who's really starting to tear things apart. And that's where things, it felt like to me, didn't really hit the mark. So going to have to try again in this second game and see what they come away from the draft in that.
But on the whole, man, going to give big shout-outs to Lwandy on the karma. That man was everywhere. I don't know if he actually ended up with 100% KP. He was very close.
Close enough.
Not. Because he starting off that first roam into mid lane was huge, but then it just never stopped. And that's where I wonder some of that confidence between him and Hope really shines through. And
these are 2 players which, of course, you said they played together in the past, but then Lwandy went over to LNG. Hope is now current reigning LPL champion coming from it.
No big deal,
well.
right?
They've just small things, small accolades, but they've reunited on this roster, and they are showing what can happen if you allow them to have that controlled game in the early game, give them that ability to win lane, what they can do with the lead.
God, just look at the damage numbers, man. Like, everybody's over 10,000 damage on Team WE. That's ridiculous. He did have 100% KP. Man's a monster. If he doesn't get MVP, then maybe we riot here, Nymaera, but that's a poor team assist. In
any other game, I'd say absolutely sure. This is not the kind of impact you expect from a Karma. But then you look at how Shanks played out those fights as well.
All right.
There is an eye candy factor, and I apologize.
I was gonna say you like the eye candy.
I'm an assassin player. I'm a big fan of that style of play. But looking at the way that Shanks just cleaned up house whenever that kind of inch of skin beneath the armor was shown was really fun to see as well. So there are a couple of names you can throw out there. Probably I'm going to betray Iwadi a little bit and go towards Shanks because I really like that style of play. But still, lots of names to be to stand up and be accounted for here on the winning team in Game 1.
I wanna go before we're going to break here very soon, but check in on what we were setting up between jungle mid. I would leave a little bit more cohesion. Do we want to see a little bit more cohesion between the likes of Heng and Shanks in the second game? Do we still like the carry performance we got from Shanks?
I really like what happened with Shanks. Whatever's happening right there.
Okay. Whatever happens works. All right, sounds good. We're gonna send it to a little break. We'll be right